she's now not being ruled by something that's back here that she can't see. Hello, and welcome to Therapy Notes 30. I'm your host, Dr. Elaine Malik. This is where practical psychology meets everyday living. This is a site where I talk about concepts, issues, topics that we hear in therapy. This is not meant to treat or diagnose anything, but is for educational purposes only. So come along and listen to some of the everyday things that we talk about in therapy. Self-awareness. It's an interesting topic because the amount of self-awareness that we have can be widely different across people, circumstances, our lifestyle, our lifespan. So when we're younger, we may have very limited self-awareness. As we get older, sometimes we have greater self-awareness. Sometimes not. So it does tend to become a critical factor in working with someone, the level of self-awareness they have. And to try to assess that is sometimes done sort of in asking certain types of questions. So first, let's go over what self-awareness is. So we kind of have an understanding of what we're talking about and why it's so important, because I think not knowing what it is, people may assume that, it's not necessarily relevant to everyday life, but it really is. And so if you've ever known someone, or you yourself have had circumstances where you have done things that are actually, the layman's way of saying it is shooting yourself in the foot. Doing something that is counter to what you want, whether it's you're doing some action, a behavior, maybe a pattern of reactions that lead to unwanted and possibly negative consequences. So that's what we mean by being self-defeating, is the actions I'm taking are literally making my life worse. So that's self-defeating. And a big reason why people act in self-defeating ways is this issue of limited self-awareness. So the way I like to define self-awareness for people when they're sort of puzzled by what does that mean is I help them understand by some simple ways of thinking about it. And a person with good or deep self-awareness has three factors. I know why I think what I think. I know why I feel what I feel, and I know why I do what I do. Sounds pretty straightforward on the surface, right? Sounds pretty like, of course I do. I know why I do what I do. But that's not necessarily true. And so let's use an example, okay? Because self-awareness isn't necessarily a simple thing to achieve. You can have very superficial self-awareness, and maybe I'll talk about that in just a second, or we can have very deep and relevant levels of self-awareness. So let's take an example. So say that there was a woman who loved to sing. Okay, maybe she grew up sang in a choir, church choir, or maybe at high school. In high school, she was a good singer. She enjoyed singing, and so she decides she wants to. She hears about a local theater club that puts on musicals and whatever, and so she's interested in participating. So she finds the number of the theater. She goes to dial the number, and she begins to feel nervous. She begins to feel anxious. She feels something in the pit of her stomach and begins to get like sick. I mean, she just starts to shake, and she hangs up the phone. Okay? Well, when you have self-awareness, obviously, you know that you have a goal and you want to achieve that goal. And so you want to do actions, take actions that help you achieve that goal. Makes sense. However, her actions did not help her achieve her goal. So the question you would ask is, why did you feel what you felt? And why did you do what you did? Now, you can feel sick and anxious, but you can still wait for the phone to be answered and talk to the person on the phone about possibly joining, right? So feelings and actions aren't necessarily the same. She could have had those feelings and selected a different behavior, but she didn't. She had those feelings of anxiety and stress and nervousness, but her actions were counter to what she really wanted. So if I said to her, why did you do what you did? People with limited self-awareness respond by saying 3 words. I don't know. I don't know. I just started to feel nervous and anxious and shaky, and I chose to just hang up the phone. So that is a situation where you'd want to get underneath that I don't know. That I don't know is the sort of, what I like to think of is, it's like having a blind spot in your psyche. There's something behind you or behind your mind that is telling you, don't, stop, don't proceed, right? But because you don't know where that's coming from, we don't know whether that's a legitimate stop or whether that stop is somehow old messaging, old situation, something that isn't relevant here, right? So we don't know where that stop message is coming from. So what we would do is we would start to try to get her to think about and reflect on where that message might be coming from. Where would that sort of link up with another situation, perhaps similar, where stop and don't makes sense in terms of whatever goal a person was trying to achieve. So we might get her to reflect on her past, and she might say, well, I don't know, I think I get nervous when I do new things, when I do something new. In the past, I have done things that didn't turn out well. And so I began to question myself or second guess my ability to make good decisions. Okay, all right. So we're now getting her to understand herself better. Now we're getting better at self-awareness. Now she can say, the reason why I hung up the phone is because in the past I developed a stop and wait approach when I get nervous. Okay, would that make sense in this situation? Given your goal is that you want to start singing and join a theater group, not a therapy group, a theater group, would that make sense for you here? No, it's pretty safe. It's a local group. Some of the people I already know. It's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I do enjoy singing. I've sang in front of groups before. I think I can do that. So now, because she owns it, and we'll talk about that in a second, but she's now not being ruled by something that's back here that she can't see, she can't understand. She now understands, oh, okay, well, maybe in the past it made sense for me to hold off, stop, wait, and get more information, or stop, wait, and assess whether this is the right decision. This is a pretty straightforward situation that should be okay. I can always back out if I find that the theater group isn't what I had thought it would be. I can always decide later not to do it. There's a lot. I have a lot more options in this situation than maybe situations I had gone through in the past. So now she has a deeper sense of self-awareness. She knows more about herself. She now can understand that those feelings of anxiety are probably not legitimate in this situation. And so she may feel the feelings, right? She may feel that remnant of her old situation and say, well, I might still be anxious when I call, but I can select another behavior. I can hear that fear. I can feel the fear, but I can do it anyway. And so now she has greater mastery. And this is why self-awareness, deep self-awareness, allows us to achieve more of our goals than we really want. We're less self-sabotaging, self-defeating, as I talked about earlier. Self-defeating often is caused by this sort of, I want something, but my very actions create almost the negative or the opposite of what I want, or create unwanted consequences. So you can see how self-awareness has a really, really important part to play in helping us achieve the things that we want in life, and to understand why sometimes we act and feel and think things that don't seem to be aligned with what we really want, and a way to uncover those. So that's an example, and that's a way to think about self-awareness. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found this informative. If you have some topics you'd like me to discuss, please put them in the comments below. Until next time, I'm your host, Dr. Elaine Malik.